What's up, YouTube? Thank you for joining me once again, this time for a live show. Thanks for being here early too. We're going to do this a little bit differently than other lives I've seen on YouTube. We're going to start with this pre-recorded intro video, and as soon as this video is over, I'm going to join you guys live so we can have a discussion. Guys, we're going to have a video about a lot of things, but mainly Amorim's biggest challenge. That's what we're here to talk about. I hope you've got a camera and some way of audio because I'm going to invite you guys on the show with me in the live portion. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Manchester United just posted their best looking set of numbers in a while. And at the same time, the football looks better too. So here is the uncomfortable question. If we miss the Champions League, does Ruben Amorim deserve the sack anyway? Because I think the real answer isn't top four or bust. It's whether the club is actually giving him a fair shot. And I'm going to prove that with the finances, the underlying stats, and what January has to look like if the board is serious. Let's first look at the table. We're 6th, level on points with 5th. Top 4 is not a fantasy, it's actually within reach. And the way our fans judge managers, it's probably going to be Champions League or sacked, while the club itself is quietly telling you a different story. Cost base down, operating profits up, but still juggling debt and PSR. So today, I've got 3 checkpoints. Are the finances actually improving? Is the football improving in a way that should predict results? And what does backing the manager really mean in January? First, let's talk finances. United reported £140.3 million revenue for the quarter. That's an operating profit of $13 million, which is a big swing from last year. And the club basically tells you why. Operating costs and headcount reductions. Now, I know some people will hear profit and think, great, let's spend big in January. But it's not that simple. The club still posted a net loss of £6.6 million this quarter, and reporting also points to major debt pressure in the background. So if INEOS and the Glazers say we can't spend, the best version of their argument is, we're trying to rebuild the club without blowing PSR and FFP with debt and cash constraints. But the fan argument is also valid. If you want Champions League revenue, you have to invest like a Champions League club. So the money is better, but the ambition question is still open. Are we running a football club or a balance sheet? Now, for the part that matters the most of all to all of us, the football. And I know some people accuse me of being biased and pro-Amorim, but that's not because I just choose to like him no matter what. In fact, I'm not usually pro the manager. I wanted every manager before Ranić sacked. Me personally, I judge a manager based on what I see in their patterns and game plan. For more about that, you just have to watch my tactics playlist videos and see if you agree with me. But in this discussion, I want to look at the data, the repeatable indicators, like chance creation, shot volume, XG. There's no doubt that Amorim is improving us in those cases. After 15 matches, United have 27.3 XG and 20.24 XGA, which is a healthy gap. In fact, I believe we're only behind Arsenal when it comes to XG, but when we talk about clean sheets, we've only had 1 all season. That puts us 3rd from the bottom. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. And according to StatMuse, we're at 241 shots and 82 of them on target. This isn't just one good day either. When you're consistently putting up these kind of numbers, results usually do follow. And compare the table reality to last season at the same point. After 15 league games, we were on 19 points. This season, we're on 25. That's not luck, that's improvement. Ruben Amorim has us on pace to getting better. We're trending in the right direction. It would be absolutely moronic to sack him now. And here's where I push back on the whole top 4 or sack narrative. Because if the board doesn't reinforce the squad, you're basically demanding a Champions League finish with one hand tied behind his back. So my standard would be, is the XG difference staying positive? Are we generating enough shots on target to win most of our games over time? Are we improving points pace versus last year? If those 3 things are true, then missing top 4 can still happen because football has variance. It has injuries and AFCONs, and too much of it is dependent on the player's mentality. You don't sack the manager for missing by 2 points if the underlying machine is improving. You sack him if the machine is broken. Now let's talk about the part that decides everything. January. If the board truly believes in Amorim, they don't need to spend recklessly. They need to spend specifically. Look at the profile of the numbers. We're creating chances, but we're still conceding 22 and allowing 20.24 XGA. Like I mentioned before, we only have one clean sheet, so this team still has moments of chaos. Backing the manager means adding one or two pieces that reduce chaos and raise the floor, because top four is about consistency. And yes, PSR, FFP is real. United literally reiterate compliance, and the league is transitioning to a new financial control measurement soon anyway, but this is Manchester United. I thought the whole point of restructuring is to compete at the top again. So if January comes and goes with 0 signings, then we learn something. It's not just about Amorim's ceiling, it's about the club's ambition. So here's my verdict. Don't reduce Amorim to a Champions League checkbox. Judge the direction of travel, points, pace, XG gap, and consistency. And right now, the direction is up. But if the board wants top four, they have to act like it in January, because the real risk isn't Amorim might not be good enough. The real risk is we'll never find out because we didn't actually back him. Our XG is the second highest in the league, but our XG against is not that good. But we have scored a decent amount of goals compared to last season, because I think, as most of you guys remember, last season we just could not score goals. But the problem is that we only have one clean sheet for 15 games. That's really bad. That actually puts us in the bottom 3 of the entire league. One clean sheet in 15 games. That's not the kind of stat that leads to top 4. You got to have maybe 20% of your games with a clean sheet. You can't just have 1 out of 15. That's horrendous. That's the difference between why Arsenal is at the top of the league right now, is because of how many clean sheets they've had. So in the video, what I was also talking about was our revenue and our finances that came out. The fact that we made 13 million in profit compared to 7 million in losses same time last year. So definitely INEOS has done a pretty good job of cutting costs, but the problem is this. They have shown a profit not by increasing revenue. Revenue is actually down by like 6%. They've made a profit by cutting expenses, which is all good and fine, and I get that in business, especially after a takeover, even though this wasn't a takeover, this was more like a partnership. But especially after a takeover or a new partnership, in this instance, the first thing you do is cut costs. But now you got to find a way to raise revenue, because cutting costs is unsustainable. You can't keep cutting costs. You can't keep sacking people until you run out of people to sack. Now, we've lost our training kit sponsor, Tenzo, whatever their name was. And we need a new sponsor. That's Omar Barada's job. Omar Barada was supposed to be an expert at raising money. That's what he did at Barcelona so well. It's part of what he did at Man City. So if he's having a hard time raising money or finding kit sponsors or training kit sponsors for high dollar amounts, it's because of the football's not been good enough. If the football's good, if you're playing well, if you're making it to Champions League, if you're getting a lot of exposure because you're in all the big tournaments, you don't have much of a problem finding sponsorship dollars for high value amounts. That's probably the problem. It's not the problem of finding sponsors. There's tons of sponsors that would love to be involved with us. The problem is getting the money we want from those sponsors. Hey, Andy's here. With that said, we got to get into Champions League next season. I'm starting to believe that. I started the season telling you guys that I really want to get into Europe at some point. Now I'm starting to think we need to get Champions League. Guys, we have our first guest. Let's get him in here. Shaunt is here. What's up, Shaunt?
How's it going, man? Good to see you,
dude. Good to see you too, man. So what I'm talking about is basically, Shaunt, actually, you would be an interesting person to talk to about this. So we got a new partnership with INEOS, and the first thing they did was cut costs, and they cut costs to the point where we're now in the profit, right? We're in the black. We're not in the red anymore.
From -7
to 13.
To 13. So that's a 20 swing shift. Yeah.
Correct. Now, with that said, though, they did that by actually cutting costs, not by increasing revenue, because revenue is down. From what I read, revenue was down 6%. That's unsustainable, right? You can't just keep cutting costs because you're going to run out of people to sack, right? At some point, you're going to run out of people to sack. But not only that, you can't keep cutting player wages either, because if you're cutting player wages, at some point, you can't attract talent.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly. So at this point, like things I've seen Swedish Rumble say and stuff like that is that we are actually not paying the highest wages. We're somewhere in mid-table when it comes to wages now.
Let's say comparatively, we are the rung below City, Liverpool, Chelsea, and there's one more that's escaping me
Maybe
right now.
Arsenal?
I was gonna say Arsenal on average, but you're right. So we're actually mid-table with regards to our wage structures, and that kind of goes back to what Sir Jim was saying. He said,
Andy's saying revenue is down 2%. I just want to correct myself there in case I misspoke, and because I said 6%. I did some of this research really quickly, so maybe it was 2% instead of 6%. I just want to correct that, but go ahead, Shaunt.
No, with regards to how the self-audit resulted in this wage reduction, I think it was very typical of any type of company coming in and having, sector-wide layoffs and instituting a new executive structure. The club was bloated and unsustainable, and I think when you look at the performance output based on the wages that we are paying to our highest earners, there's clearly a gap with regards to expected performance on the pitch, or even just availability and time on the pitch, because we had a period of time where Casemiro, who is in fact our highest earner above Bruno Fernandes, he had a period of time where he wasn't even in the coach's favor. So there's a lot of moving parts that go on with ushering in a new institution that takes over the sporting direction. But on the whole, I do think that is a cause for concern that if certain talents and certain profiles of players that come onto the transfer market have a wage expectation, and if you're a club that's expecting to compete on the global scale, be it in whatever competitions or just domestically, you need to have competitive wages to go with that. To the flip side, though, I do like the fact that the profile players that we are getting are on the upward trajectory, and that if we have a more rigid wage structure and you're attracting players in that lower range of the 18 to 26 rather than the peak time of their career where they're expecting to get their big payout, I think that the attraction of the project and the streamlining of wage parity would then result in more cohesion on the pitch and everyone buying in. Because when you have that disparity between the top earners not performing as they should on the pitch, and then you have yourself, somebody that's a budding talent, say it be an Ahmad, say it be, let's say in a better scenario, a Kobe Mainu, he's on literally 10% or actually 7% of what Casemiro's earning per week. So there needs to be a little bit of appreciation for our younger players. We need to go for talent in that younger range, but that's going to be a little bit closer to that wage structure. So I do think that there is some benefits to this new hard cap that they've instituted of around that 200,000 pounds per week without CL. We're going to see an appreciation and bonus, considering we finish where I believe we'll finish. But that will coincide with attracting more talent at their peak ranges.
Yeah, and that is something that is concerning a little bit, is the wages discussion that we were saying earlier, was that if we're all in for Elliot Anderson, and I really think that there's going to be at least 3 other clubs in for him this summer, and we're the third highest offer he's getting, I don't care what, a lot of people will say, well, I don't want him then if he's going to be coming for the money only. He's got to want to join the project. The other 2 higher wage offering clubs are also going to be clubs that are finishing higher than us in the table.
That's
Probably.
understood. That's understood and implied. But I do believe that if you look at past performance in the transfer market, we were able to sell a better project to Lenny Yoro. We were able to prize Brian Mbumo and Matheus Cunha, even though he had suitors at comparatively higher standings in Tottenham and Arsenal, respectively, that he was considering going to. In fact, I think it was leaked that Brian Mbeumo's favorite team in the Prem is Arsenal. So he had already said yes to us, and for him to be sold on this project, I think it's a good. And we've had several instances when we've been in or around the Champions League places where we've been still able to attract the top talent. So the prestige of Manchester United will always ring true. So I'm not concerned about the attraction of it. I think with regards to the players that we're getting in, if Elliot Anderson is going to be going for an out-and-out wage increase and structure bonus, I do believe that doesn't really fall in line with the clean living professional outline that we're looking for anyways. And I don't get that. I don't get that noise from that anyways. I do think we get a lot of agent talk with regards to Real Madrid are going to be looking at him, Bayern are looking at him. Those are usually what happens during the transfer window. You get a lot of these murmurs of my client is getting all of this interest. When at the end of the day, it seems based on all the paper talk that I've seen and what, in the knows are saying, Elliot Anderson has a lot of legwork already provided by Barada and company. And it looks like the transfer strategy has been make our intent early, get a non-committal, soft committal acceptance, and then go in and discuss, get the wages accepted first, and then deal with the clubs, which would have to start with, first and foremost, a buy-in of the project. So I do believe that selling or marketing United isn't the issue here. I think the issue is feasibly, do we have enough revolving credit facility, and are we willing to go into that in order to appropriate for these transfers? Well, how is January going to look? Is some of that budget from the summer going to then be accelerated in the January window?
So, yeah, I wasn't even, when I was bringing up Elliot Anderson, for me, that's always going to be a summer signing. I just don't see it happening in January. But since you brought up January, I think that is more, let's say, more in the immediate future, and it is something that we need to be talking about. In my belief, and you can tell me if you agree with me or not, in my belief, I don't think we can truly judge this manager if we don't back him in January. And what I mean by that is I think this manager has already shown what our ceiling is, with what his ceiling is with this squad, let's say, because some people are going to disagree with me and they're going to say with another manager, the ceiling would be higher. That's not the conversation. The conversation is we're probably not going to sack this manager. And with this manager, he's already shown what the ceiling is with this squad. He's already shown what the tendencies are with this squad. They play one good half of football most of the time. And then the bad half of football either costs us points or we just make it out of the half and we pull the win off. Does that make sense? Like we're not...
It actually has statistical backing to that as well, because 15 of the 22 goals that we've conceded have come in the second half, which coincides with that drop off in intensity and as much as what Ruben said in the press conferences as well. So I'm following exactly how the logic is. And I do believe the hierarchy understands that as well. So in your estimation, Semeex, do you believe that the biggest priority needs to be one of the midfield positions? Because obviously Bruno is going to remain in that left center mid, but there with the intensity drop off, which part of the three blocks do you believe is where we're losing the control the most? Because my deductions is our highest priority should be that right center mid.
Yeah, the highest priority needs to be the right center mid, as you said, but also like a wing back who's more of a winger. I don't believe that one signing is going to guarantee us top four. Let's say hopefully it'll be top 5 this year, and that's what it's trending towards, that maybe top 5 will get us there. But for me,
especially with the Champions League coefficient, that based on how far the current Premier League 5 is looking like sealed spots.
Correct. So, but if I was on the board, if I was in that boardroom, I would basically sit there and say, hey, no matter what, we're getting a center midfielder and a left wing back by the end of next summer. And then we're probably going to get another 3 pieces in that summer, right? Why don't we do those 2 this January? Why don't we move up? Because look, man, like I would love to sit here and tell you like, yeah, let's get a center midfielder and then hopefully but that's still a gamble. I feel like you get, I feel like you get the wing back and the center midfielder and then you can hold Ruben accountable. Do you get I feel like you get the center midfielder.
I
you
completely
can't hold them
understand it.
accountable. And I want us to start acting like a big club that's trying to win something. And that means that everything you just said is true. But also, I don't want to think of it as this is the guy or this is the guy. When you are talking about a big club like Real Madrid, like Barcelona, like, don't make me say it, but some teams in our league that I don't want to mention, but every one of them has an embarrassment of riches. They don't just go, that's the guy. They go, I'm buying all three of those guys. And the ones that work out, and the ones that don't sit on the bench. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
I think that's, but we've also seen that backfire tremendously. We got 115 going with City.
But what why I'm saying that, just so you know, though, is like Ben here made a comment that says, like, I don't think there will be any short-term signings, to be honest, exception being if someone leaves. And what I'm trying to get at is that let's not think of these signings as short-term. Let's think of them as future bench players. Like, if somebody's telling me, like, why sign Joao Gomes when we could go in for Elliot Anderson later, and I'm going, why not get both? And why can't Joao Gomes be the backup?
By all
for
means,
Elliot Anderson?
Semeex, we're so aligned. I think maybe I had a misnomer when I said short term. I think maybe short term targets, as in the January window, what is available to us.
Correct. I knew that's what you meant. I was just trying to let Ben know.
Which is good, but it's good to differentiate, because at the end of the day, how we were run under Woodward and Murtaugh, Arnold, it was more so of, well, oh shoot, we have our thumb up our butts now. We got to get somebody in. And that's how you get a Ugarte signing, even though that was INEOS, funnily enough. But that's the type of player that they would have at the end of the window. Just get somebody in. We'll see if we can work with them and then move forward. It's a weird composition because I'm definitely no James, but I have two of the Devils here, so that's cool to see.
Yeah, Semeex, can you just put me in the middle, bro? I just want.
Don't worry about it. I'm acting producer right now. I got you.
No, I want to see where I am on the actual thing, because Riverside is weird with this. Hold on.
No, if I put you in the middle, you'll be in the middle of an Armenian sandwich.
So you let me make the jokes, bro. I'm the guest. I was gonna say, so we have this saying in Hindi which goes kebab mein haddi, which basically means bone inside the kebab, and obviously kebab is made of mincemeat, right? So there's not supposed to be any bone, and it's a metaphor for someone who's not supposed to be there. So how are my favorite Armenian kebabs doing today?
Armenian kebabs.
This is great. This is fun. I love Riverside. This is what a great platform.
Yeah,
a lot of potential. I like it.
Awesome. Okay, well, Semeex, I heard a lot of the stuff you said, and as one of my favorite viewers, contributors on the channel says, it was scandalous. Okay, it's Nelson, by the way. I'm sure the viewers in the chat know who I'm talking about. No, but you made an interesting point about the what's it called? How the other teams have the pick of the litter, whereas we're not in that same position, and you want us to be back there, right? I feel like sometimes when you have a lot of money, you are forced into going for the players that look really good on paper, and you set yourself up to fail. And Exhibit A is Liverpool this year, right? You look at Liverpool when they didn't have money, they had to be so much more intelligent about finding the players that, more moneyballing it a bit more, right? In terms of going for the Salah, the Mane. Even before that, like, they bought Suarez for 25 million. They paid more money for Andy Carroll than they did for Suarez, right? And I actually think that this might be good for us in terms of not being in the limelight as much, right? Because the limelight has actually led to us being where we are today, is my opinion, right? The limelight, the pressure, like, I'm doing a show in 15 minutes talking about Paul Scholes needs a vacation. So, we have too much noise, too much of the pressure is built around the club. There's so much shit going on. And I feel like us being in this position is forcing us to go for, because do we go for Mbumo and Cunha type of signings like 5 years ago? Probably not. Right?
They don't have the shirt sale factor that we would see when we were giving up those marketing decks.
You could say that maybe Cunha would have it because he's, like the what's it?
Don't say Cantona, please, not
Expressions.
again.
No. Expressions calls him the Brazilian Josh Denzel, which I find hilarious. But I'm just saying, like he does have a little bit of the appeal, but he's still a Wolves player who finished a position below us, right, 16th place. And so I actually think that we're forced to be in a position that we don't like. I agree with what Semeex said, but maybe it's a position that we need to go through so that we really fix, the sins of the past transfer windows.
Yeah. I agree with you. My point was this, that like a lot of people, when we talk about players like Tyler Adams, when we talk about players like Joao Gomes, they feel like underwhelmed because they heard a lot about Elliot Anderson or the Crystal Palace midfielder Wharton or Carlos Baleba. I do want those guys. Obviously, those are the priority ones. But for now, for January, why not get the bench player, the future backup or the future challenger, if you will, on the training pitch? I don't even want to call them a backup because if they train harder, then they should be starting either way.
The first 16 players, yeah,
correct. And here's the thing: like we need a whole new midfield. So you can't name one midfielder, a central midfielder, that I would look at you and go, yeah, I'd keep him. Literally, if you told me you're getting rid of every single central midfielder we have on the team, yes, I'm talking about everyone. I'm talking about the guy who's been our star for the last 10 years and the youngster who everybody believes might be the future bright star. If you told me you want to sell every single one of them, I don't have much of an argument. I might be like, I don't want to get rid of them, but what?
Let me ask you something.
No.
This feels like a fresh version of, since we're live, right? This feels like a slightly fresher version. Like, there's no holds barred. So let me just go at you a little bit, right? From a tactical standpoint, have you been impressed by Bruno Fernandes this year?
Yes and no, but I could say the same thing about Casemiro. What I mean by that is the bad moments are bad and the great moments are great for both of those players. Yeah. Like Cass has had some games where I was like, oh my God, he's in every, like he's on the right blade of grass at every second of the game. And then he's got some games where I'm like, where is he? Like, what's he doing? And but I've had the same just feel like with the Bruno's contrast touches, between, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just gotten to the point where we need a refresh. Like, let's not call it a rebuild when we're just remodeling the kitchen. Like, you want to rebuild, tear the darn house down and let's build a new one. Let's build a whole new everything. That's where I'm at.
I'm just worried about, so from my perspective, I think you do have a very good point. Like, Casemiro is giving us more good games out of 10 than he was last year, but the bad games are bad, right? Like, they're like, my God, he's going to single-handedly cost us this game. And I just think in comparison to him and Bruno's bad games aren't as bad as Casemiro's, but his good games are better than Casemiro's. That's what I've personally seen. Because Bruno runs the show in many ways, right? He does so many things in that system. And what you're talking about, the poor touches, I've seen that more in the sort of post 75 minutes of the game when he is really tired because of the burden on him in this system, right? So I'm not suggesting that Bruno sort of stays in the midfield for the next 3 years. He's part of, Project 150 in the midfield. But my thing is, if we get rid of Bruno, like, I actually don't understand, because even though I'm saying we should keep Bruno, I do also agree that we should go get another midfielder. And when we do that, it seems like, where does Bruno play then?
Can I pause something, though?
Yeah.
I believe that maybe because of the fervent opposition that we've seen towards the manager, it clouds our ability to be a little bit objective on areas for improvement. And I do believe that this type of over-reliance on Bruno's ability to outperform his systemic and positional and discipline and incompatibility might be a hindrance to the development of the project in the long term. Therefore, getting certain players in, I mean, he has 5 substitutions. He makes the use of it, but we see it mostly in the back line. Now, that's probably due to availability or injury concerns and how the game flows. But I do think that that's something that I'd like to see improved upon by the manager. not being so over reliant on Bruno, because we do know that, let's say Bruno were to get an amazing deal and he feels that his time here would be capped off by just saying goodbye and fielding the club a good amount of transfer fee. We were going to have that type of matriculation period again for this new center midfielder pairing, which is going to change how the system works. So, but the things that I do have to be excited about are, I think Bruno should demonstrate a lot more discipline in the more recent times. And with AFCON coming up, we have seen different patterns of play emerge. As more specifically, Andy, love the video you put out with regards to that left-hand side. I think you highlighted Delos, Shaw, and Mount. But in general, I just like the fact that our parity with regards to build-up structure and attacking structure is now more even and not so over-reliant as we saw in a couple games. I believe in the Tottenham game, there was like a 49% over-reliance on the Mbumo Ahmad side. And
No,
earlier,
actually, the Tottenham game was 59% on the left side, and I was crazy surprised.
there's an aberration on another
Yeah.
game that had the same thing,
Can
but
I-
in the opposite side. Go ahead, Semeex.
Can I just say, before we start talking about left side and right side, I just want to finish my comments on Bruno. Like, I have no doubt that Bruno's the best player in our squad. So let's get that out of the way. But I also sometimes feel like the over-reliance on Bruno continues even when he's having a bad game. And I have no doubt that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Mbappe was the best player on PSG. And anybody who wants to say otherwise, okay, fine. But he was, in my opinion, he was the best player on PSG. But when he left PSG, the over-reliance on Mbappe left with him. And that made the squad have to do things a little differently. And look, man, I might be wrong. But it's got, like I said, it's gotten to the point where if we're rebuilding, let's rebuild. Now, if we're going to keep Bruno around, that's fine too. I'm not sitting here going, Bruno has to leave for us to win a title. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I wouldn't argue against it if the board said, hey, we're going to actually do a real, rebuild everything. And that's fine. We shouldn't be, here's my biggest problem. If the board stops building, that's my biggest problem. Not how they rebuild and who they kick out. Actually, the more people they kick out, the happier I am than if they just rebuild 3 pieces or 4 pieces. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you're going to sit, not you, I'm not pointing a finger at you guys. I'm talking about you as the general fan base. If the general fan base is going to sit there and go, no, we should only change 7 or 8, but 3 is not good enough, but 10 would be too much because I don't want that player to leave. I don't want that player to leave. Well, no, dude. It's either small or big. Okay? We're not going to sit here and go,
Semeex, my only
not
issue
this player
is,
or that player.
and I fall, whenever I've spoken in forums, on live streams or anything, people look at me as some type of INEOS defender or puppet. I think there's certain financial modeling constraints that go with a very opportunistic type of transfer policy. We've seen a lot of really...
Sorry, guys, I gotta go.
No worries.
I have inspection in my apartment, I guess. All right, see ya.
Okay. No worries.
Wow,
Good luck
okay.
with that. But yeah,
How's it going to be live in 5 minutes? What are they inspecting his apartment for anyway?
maybe that's his guess. Maybe he brought in Jean-Claude what's his face to inspect the dealings. But what I was gonna kind of go back to, so I think a lot of this is the situation is very fluid, and I hate that it feels reactive, but I want to give them a little bit more credit with regards to they have different paths that they're going down, and they want to see, okay, within the January window, I heard this on a Ben Jacobs interview. It sounds a little incoherent, but I understand it from murmurs around executive leadership, especially coming around big decision making. This is how it happens. They have contingency plans, plan A, plan B, plan C. You could do it from identification of transfer targets. You could do it from just ways of availability on the pitch. So they want to see how we perform in this time during AFCON to identify where the real, and this is all supported by statistics and what they see. They have the scouting guides they got from Mercedes F1, and data analysts. They're really this is we've really graduated in there. They will see, okay, with Delo and Dorgu being our only wingbacks, God help us, we have to see how they perform too. So we saw at Lecce, Dorgu had a more bias on the right hand wing. So maybe with this inversion of the wingbacks, we might have a little bit more balance. Anyways, we have Mount resurgence on the left 10. If we're going to be banking on we have certain performance standards that we need to get to, that might shift our transfer identification of what we need. Because let's just say on the left hand side, Dorgu's playing a blinder now. His brain is caught up to his feet, and he doesn't have the bozo gene for at least a more run of gains. But let's say Dorgu continues to disappoint. Then that might have to say we need more support on that right hand side, because I do believe that Ahmad, for all of his strengths, can be a weakness a lot of the times, especially as he interplays with Mbeumo, because Mbeumo is just a better player on both sides, on the 10 or the right wing back. He's actually very deadly, whipping across and as the widest player in zone. I believe is it 16? 18, yeah. In zone 18. That's where he really excels. Oh, that's what the guys in the data rooms are looking at right now. Where are we losing our control in which zone? Which players, based on how they've played in the past, based on their techniques, their metrics, they have such a litany of statistics and data available to them that if they deem certain targets as more so, they're having these conversations in parallel. It's not like a series, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We know that they're going to multiple targets. I think most of this anxiety is because we've been marred by a horrible ownership group who's basically done transfers by committee, getting in bankers involved into sporting decisions, and people that don't even know what the hell the difference is between a sitter, anchor versus a progressor, controller, and a creator. Have no idea. They just know what position does he play in this formation. We need help there. So I think
they go, hey, we couldn't get Frankie de Jong. Let's get Casemiro. It's like, dude, they're not even the same. Like, what are we doing? No, I get your point, but my fear is that they are limited in funds and that it's a balance sheet driven. So then it becomes do we really want to invest in January, or do we need to bank that fund or that monies so we can get our main target in summer who may cost us $100 million?
Semeex, I think the issue is signal to noise. What we're hearing in the papers, especially from the athletic crew and from the people that have such intimate relationships with the club, whenever you see certain things put out in publications, like might be a dry winter for us, we're just going to wait and see for summer, that might be positioning as well and anchoring.
Correct.
And that's what I'm hoping.
But here's the problem. I don't doubt, because a part of me is starting to really feel like they're not going to do anything in January until the end, which I don't understand.
And you have reason to believe that because of the first window. I understand that.
Correct. Why aren't we positioning ourselves? This is not a summer window, so this should not be the kind of window where you're saying we have to sell to buy, right? Because it's not a summer window, so you're probably not going to sell.
Or a midfielder will come in depending on what happens with Manu. No, it should be a midfielder should come in regardless. And if Manu wants to fight and compete and the squad wants to have more inter-competition, fantastic. We are aligned completely. Yeah.
Correct. So then we need to start hearing within the next 10 days that we're progressing in talks with somebody for something. And because I'm not hearing that, I do feel that they're actually the kinds of things that I'm reading about, like, well, they're going to wait for AFCON to be over and then they're going to decide if they're going to buy or not. But it's like, what are you waiting for? You're waiting to see if someone gets.
I truly believe that's noise. I think that's
noise. I hope so
because we're going to drop some points in this AFCON run. It's going to happen. Our team is, if we look at this season and how we performed, how Amorim's excelled as well, I think the underlying shows we progressed a lot since last season. And we've had some individual errors that have really cost us standings in the table. So we're really performing like a number 2 or number 3 team, and we've had other teams overperform. So it's a very, very fragile period with regards to what the standings are going to look like. You just have to bank on the fact that I think Ruben's really showing his poise, his tactical nous, and he's understanding the league a little bit more and who he can depend on. So those are the things that really keep me intrigued and motivated for this project.
Yeah. Me too. I think anybody who doesn't see the improvement is just not looking and are clouded by like bias. Because I think the improvement's obvious. The patterns are running longer than they used to. What I mean by that is like we used to run one of his patterns, and then within 2 or 3 passes, I would have to stop my video, and sometimes I would pause the video and go, "This is what was supposed to happen," and I'll draw arrows. He was supposed to go there. He was supposed to go there.
Yeah. I remember.
Whereas now I can actually show the whole entire pattern all the way up to the final third, and then we make the mistake of either not finishing or not making a good pass. I want to bring in another friend. I thought somebody. Oh yeah, Jarvis. I want to bring in Jarvis. He's from a channel. He runs a channel called Tactical Devils. He's a good friend of mine. He's actually one of the first people who was another YouTuber content creator that discovered me and put me on his channel when I had like no subs. I don't know what I had. I had less than 1,000 subs, and Jarvis put me on his channel, which I've always appreciated. Jarvis, thank you for joining us, man. So, and also Jarvis is from Europe, so we have some European, what do you call it? European
representation.
Representation.
Yeah.
It's not just a Canadian and Hollywood and California representation. All right, Jarvis, talk to us, man. So we've already talked about getting rid of Bruno, keeping Bruno, and things of that nature. And then I've got 2 more waiting in the lobby, Tobi and Be Cool. We'll bring them in as soon as when Jarvis is done talking about it, and then we'll just have everybody on the screen at the same time, so no need to leave. But Jarvis, we were talking about Bruno, and some people want Bruno to stay, some people want Bruno to leave. I think I know where you stand, because but in a politically nice way, Jarvis.
Yeah.
Tell me in 30 seconds or a minute, tell me where you stand on that and why.
Well, if you're only going to give me 1 minute, I have to be controversial and say I don't want Bruno. Or, it's more layers to it. That's the thing. For me, I think Bruno ruins our balance in the team. It's not about Bruno specifically. It's about the type of player, his player profile. 2 seconds. But it comes down to our rest defense, that someone likes to call it, or they call it the counter-attacking press. So Amorim, when he played at Sporting, he used the 3-2 formation as the counter-attacking structure when we lost the ball. But while we have Bruno now, Casemiro is left alone a lot of the time. So our rest defense is mainly Casemiro and 3 central defenders. And that's why we get exposed time after time. And, we can make a compilation from this season about Bruno and show 10 highlights where he's been fantastic. But I can also do the same when it comes to mistakes. And he presses too high, he gets overrun. And what happens in situations like that is the opposition starts carrying the ball and running at us. And we know Casemiro is not the fastest. I have so many clips of Casemiro just standing there, doesn't know what to do with acres of space around him, alone against 1 or 2 or 3 guys running at him. So again, it exposes Casemiro too. But both of them are not good enough to play this Amorim system. But I think Bruno is making Amorim to change his system, and he's not playing the way Amorim wants to play. So in a way, I don't know why Amorim is not taking charge of this, because it's obvious if you know football that it's not good enough. And it's also going into attack, because Bruno rushes the attacks a lot of the time. And football is mainly about the rhythm and tempo. You have to have the right rhythm and right tempo when going into attack. And I think sometimes we rushes, we go too quick into attack, and we don't come as a unit. We attack as individuals. You have Mbumo running, you have Ahmad running, you have Cunha running. And it's okay carrying the ball. We know Amorim wants to carry the ball. But when it comes to this, it's triggers. And Amorim system can be direct, but it's situational. It's not constant. And what I see now in this team, it's not situational. It's constant. And this is also because of what I think is Bruno's fault. So I rest my case.
I understand where you're coming from, but I would argue that like in the last game we weren't really going too direct. But maybe that's because Wolves aren't that good, and that could be the reason why. So I hold judgment for another 2 or 3 games to see how we do against Bournemouth. But with that said, though, so I'm what I want to bring in is be cool. Is your mic off? Be cool.
I think my mic is off.
Be
Was
cool.
off.
I know you're always in my comments, and you have a pretty good eye for tactics. Same question to you, unless you want to change the subject to something else. But I think the question really is, does a rebuild need to have Bruno leave? Do we know that a different profile player is going to make this system run better? Like Jarvis was saying.
My question is, I think you are going into a false narrative. Problem with the over-reliance on Bruno is due to the lack of other players asserting themselves. Most players, when they face tough times, they choose to look for someone to solve their problems. And that's what is happening in Man United team. Man United needs talented players.
Be cool.
And with talent...
Go ahead. Finish your thought. With talent?
With talent and with personality, what happens is that the team starts to function well. See, for instance, the society between Bruno and Mount. See the society between Ahmad and Mubumu. What Man United needs is to start developing societies between players in order that they don't look for a savior, because that's the problem today still.
Yeah, sorry, be cool. The only reason why I think I got your point, and the only reason why I'm cutting you off is obviously you're driving or something like that, and it sounds really weird. But that's a good point. Be cool. I don't mean to cut you off or be rude. I just don't want because people are saying it's echoing and things like that in the chat. So hopefully next time, I want you to come on again. I want to talk to you again. I love your comments. But we will continue to talk about what you just said, because I think the point you're trying to make is that because talent is lacking and people need to step up and take responsibility for their own play, but it's just easier to look for somebody else to bail them out. I think that's where you're going with that. And again, I'm sorry I only turned your mic off because I could actually hear like trucks and roads in my ear while you're talking. Sorry about that, man. Again, no disrespect at all. Hopefully you could come on again to the channel in the future and talk again.
I'm sure Be Cool will be cool about it. It's cool. But I wanted to talk to the main tactics here, and I think Be Cool has a good perspective because he's Portuguese, so he's understood Amorim on, when he was at Sporting, and then he has that dynamic understanding of what type. The word he used was societies. That's such that was so interesting to hear it. But for us, we think of it as connections or some type of, and FIFA terminology is like having a green league as chemistry. I do believe, Jarvis, your point has a lot of legs to it with regards to that type of space that Bruno's occupying in the midfield and in the final third. His indiscipline and pressing triggers is something that has detrimental effects if you don't have the supporting characters to make that coverage. So a Casemiro without the legs, center backs that aren't jumping into the midfield, initiating duels into the middle of the block, you are then expanding that positional dominance for the other team, causing there to be a change in game state. Transitionally, we're super weak. We are very weak on the run. But I also think we've seen a marked difference with regards to when our wide center backs step and press, like I mentioned before, when they have more of a jumping into the midfield. I have a crazy shot that I've always thought. I don't think the two midfielders are the most important players in Amorim's system. I believe it's the wide center backs and the wing backs. Because from a pressing trigger, you don't get it from the striker. You actually get it from the 10s. The 10s dictate it. And the 10s give that balance along with that center back that comes in to help out in the midfield. But when you have Casemiro veering from left to right because we're stuck in a 3-1-6 or a 3-6-1 in defense, 5-4-1, all these different permutations he's played around with. You've seen it's so funny with the whole system talk. I'm sorry to bore everyone to death about it. We've seen the system be so dynamic, playing with a center back going to the midfield, have the wing backs go more narrow. In long ball, it's a 4-2-2. We've seen 4-4-2. We've seen so many different ways that he likes to play, and that's due to the profiles on the pitch. I just think he doesn't have the right profiles to support Bruno, and Bruno is outperforming despite his indiscipline positionally and system-wise. And that's why I will always have love in my heart for that guy. What he's done for the club is fantastic. I love your background too, Jarvis. He got Glazers out in Newton Heath. So he's a true fan for me. Green and gold till the club is sold. But if we're talking about for this next era that INEOS wants to build, I do think the unfortunate circumstance is going to be we have to give Bruno his plaudits, his praise for carrying the club on his back for this time. But the next graduation of the system will truly fly if we have more midfielders that are able to kind of positionally give us more control in that middle of the pitch.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right when you said that the center backs and the 10s are very important to this system. And I think the board kind of proved that when last summer they didn't buy a central midfielder when they knew that the center of the midfield was an issue. And instead they opted to buy 3 forwards. They could have easily said, we're just going to buy 2 forwards and a central midfielder. But they obviously thought in the same way that Shaunt was saying that the central midfield isn't that important. Now, unfortunately, I'm kind of on Jarvis's side right now because the midfield is killing me, but so is the wing back, to be honest with you. I can never say the midfield is bad without also saying so is one of our wing backs. Because you're right, in the Amorim system, the 2 center backs, the left and right center backs, and the 2 wing backs might be the most important players on the pitch. If they're performing, it's really, really hard for other teams to get out of their own half. And it's really, really hard for other teams to stay compact in the center if the wingbacks are both performing. It's going to stretch the other team apart. But right now, that wingback role that center midfielder role is being played at such a low quality level with legs that are just not fast enough or active enough to take some of the pressure back in. We need to play the other team like an accordion. We have to make the other team go wide and come back, wide and come back, wide and come back. When you do that enough times, bigger gaps and spaces start to open. The opponent starts to get tired. That's why like Johan Cruyff and Pep not only were they big believers of if we have the ball, then you can't score, but they also knew that there was an underlying aspect that the more minutes that I have the ball, the other team's players are getting tired more. When you're out of possession, you tend to burn more energy because you have to react to what's going on. You don't control what's going on. You're reacting to what's going on. Now, some people will argue, like Jose Mourinho will argue, I can control what's going on without the ball. Yeah, you can, if your players all have the legs to do that. You can't control what's going on without the ball if your players don't have the legs to plug the gaps that the other team wants and force the other team to go into the direction you want them to go in. And that's kind of the problem. And what Jarvis was saying was with Bruno, the counter press is lacking. And basically, I think that's what you were saying earlier, right? The counter press was
the counter press and the counter defense, the rest defense is not in place because. But what I'm trying to say,
the rest defense and the counter press was lacking. Now, some of that has to do with mentality, just being more offensive minded than defensive minded, but some of that has to do with legs. And Casemiro's legs make Bruno's legs look bad too, right? Because you can get away with having one guy without maybe the best legs, as long as the other guy is covering, like Conte. You know, Conte made his teammates look great because Conte covered so much ground. Does that make sense? And that's where we have, like, it's time to start focusing on the midfield, is my real opinion, like what I was getting at. in a long way.
No, but it needed the precedents to be set, because you're absolutely right. Our two highest wage earners are in the middle of the pitch, in a position that, even despite the reliance on this formation being more so on the outsides, they're still causing a lot of inconsistencies with regards to the way that we play and the way that we attack. I think that's probably maybe why there's this unsaid feeling amongst fans of how come you don't put in youth in those parts of the pitch, because they're going to have more industry, they're going to have more energy just by virtue of their age profile, and how you would almost rather teach a young and budding player to work into those roles than have these old dogs teach them new tricks when that isn't really their wheelhouse. And then eventually we adapting the way we play due to their strengths, which causes us to have those gaps in our performance.
Hey, Tobi, you've been waiting. Did you want to add something to the conversation? I'm going to unmute your mic here. I guess you don't have a working mic?
I do have a working mic.
Oh, there you go. Tobi, so tell us, man, what out of everything you've heard so far in the last 5-10 minutes, what kind of thoughts are you having?
So on the Bruno situation, I think we are a little bit too quick to say let's get Bruno out, especially I think we tend to pull from the example of Ronaldo, of like the Arsenal revamp of Kylian Mbappe. And I think the fact that it works for them doesn't necessarily mean it would work for us. The fact that it's worked for them doesn't mean this is the same scenario. Bruno is a really good player. He's one of the best in the league, obviously. I think the first thing we should be trying is getting a replacement for Casemiro before even thinking about getting Bruno out. If you get a replacement for Casemiro and then you play that person together with Bruno and that doesn't work, then you might now think about getting Bruno out, because you're getting so much quality from Bruno. Once you get him out of the team, you don't get all of those quality. You don't get the goals, the additional goals. You don't get the assists, like really, really good assists, the really good passes, the switch of plays. You don't get that from Bruno. Yeah, I know there's a lot on him, and I know sometimes he presses like a headless chicken. But I feel like even most of the time when he does press like that, it's out of frustration of, you should be pressing, but you're not pressing, so I'll go myself. And then he just kind of opens space behind. So, like, if he has better teammates around him, people that know what you're supposed to do and do it by themselves, I don't see Bruno overstepping. It's not one to, like, see perhaps Kunha doing what he ought to do and then try to go and do the same thing or stay in the same position. Bruno doesn't do that. Even if people in front of him are working well enough, I see Bruno working perfectly in the team. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't.
I hope you get your wish. I hope that in January we get the Casemiro replacement. And I hope we get to see what Bruno looks like with somebody else with more legs that can cover more ground behind him. Look, a lot of people think that Carlos Baleba is having a bad season. We shouldn't go for him anymore and things like that. But honestly, if we can get Carlos Baleba in January, I'd be all over it. I think Carlos Baleba's legs are still there. Like, he might not be doing everything right like he was last season, but I will also argue like his last 3 games were actually pretty good. I have a feeling that Carlos knows the transfer window is about to open and that he's like, okay, let me show everybody what I can do again because I want to get out of here. I have a feeling he didn't play well but anyway, that's a different discussion. But I hope you get your wish, Tobi. I hope we get a Joao Gomes, Ederson from Atalanta or a Baleba coming in so that we can see what Bruno can do with better coverage behind him. Is that kind of what you were saying, Tobi?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I think Bruno will be spectacular for us if we have a very good working team, if everybody is doing what they ought to be doing.
Yeah. So Jarvis, Shaunt, anybody take it from here and tell me, like, is that acceptable? Like Jarvis especially, because I know you've been you've made videos about Bruno maybe not being a part of the future. But if we brought in somebody like Joao Gomes or even the American that plays for Bournemouth, what's his name? Tyler Adams.
Yeah.
And he proves that his legs covering for Bruno is basically Bruno's not looking as bad anymore in those situations that you were just talking about. Would you be open to Bruno staying another 2 seasons? Now, look, another 2 seasons is the max I'd give him, by the way, just because of age. Like, I don't want him around when he's like 36 or whatever. I don't even know how old he is right now, but I'm guessing another 2 seasons
Jarvis,
is enough.
even in the 10 position, let's say we get 2 midfielders, and I know we haven't. Yeah, would you? I think it's the 8 position that we're really.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just want to say thank you to I Am Titanium. I just saw your super chat, man. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, on Riverside, me and Shaunt are working on this for the future too, so that we can put super chats and alerts on Riverside. I'm sorry that this time it's not there. We're still working on it, but there is a way to do it, and we are going to have that solution up by like the next week or two. But thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it, and I love that he's asking people to share the stream, guys, and he's asking people to hit the like button. Share the stream, hit the like button. We're only going to do another 5 or 10 minutes,
go
and then
follow
we're all
Jarvis
go
as well. Sub
and
to
go
his
follow
channel.
Jarvis. Yeah,
Yes,
go
thank
follow
you.
Jarvis. Go to Tactical Devils.
Jarvis, I'm fanboying because I've watched your content too. So
Thank you. Thank you.
It's good. It means a lot that you have such brilliant minds. Mine not included, but in a community like everyone.
Jarvis. Yeah, Jarvis's channel has actually interviewed ex-referees, ex-players. Like, Jarvis is always doing real podcast, serious type discussions, guys. So, go over there and check out some of his lives and spend some time there. Nightwing, thank you so much, man. Nightwing just sent 5 memberships to some of you guys. You guys hit the like button and tell Nightwing thank you for the memberships. Some of you guys have just gotten memberships from Nightwing. Nightwing, thank you so much, man, for doing that. That's a very rare thing. Jarvis was the first one to ever do it on my channel, actually, and you're the second to do it on my channel. So thank you so much, Nightwing, for doing that. All right, Jarvis, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't quite remember where we were at, but I talked about rhythm and tempo and the 3-1-6. Not mention the 3-1-6. When I talk about the balance, I talk about the 3-2 as the rest defense. Ruben Amorim did this, but when we look at Bruno, and when he first came to the Premier League and played under Ollie had 2 sitting midfielders. We had Fred and McTominay, and we had a back 4. He usually had at least 5 guys defending, or maybe 6, because we only had 4 attackers. We had Martial, Greenwood, Rashford, and Bruno. And the first couple of seasons with Bruno, when we had that balance, Bruno was at his best. He was firing, and we weren't exposed in that way. People, okay, they dissed Ollie. They called it counter-attacking football, but I think it was much more. It was misunderstood. But when you look at other managers who played Bruno, Ten Hag, vertically going into the 3-1-6 attacking. We left a big space. We all talked about the big gap in the midfield. Same now, I see tendencies with Amorim, and also even if you look at Portugal and Martinez with the Portuguese team, they also now attack in the 3-1-6, and that exposes them a little bit. If you look at the Ireland game and other games, they are not very solid defensively, and Bruno is a part of this. And Bruno is the type of player who, he gives everything, and I commend him. I like that side of him. But when you are asked to play in an 8 position and you're not a number 8, you will expose the team, because it all sticks together. And for me, yeah, I would be open to play Bruno in the 10 position, but then we have to change the formation. You can't play a number 10 in this Amorim system with the 2 10s. That's not the same role as the single 10.
Almost like a 3-5-2.
Bruno is the second striker. Yeah. That's his ideal position. Yeah. That's his definitely ideal position. So, from my take, I don't see a way to use Bruno in a sensible way. So if we have the possibility, try to sell him on. I won't keep him for a couple of years just to keep him.
Jarvis,
Tobi, go ahead.
Do you mind if I ask, like, what exactly are the would I say skill sets you think would best fit that position?
What skill sets best fits the position Bruno plays in? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, for the number 8, for me, I'm always into certain type of midfielders. I like the Sander Berge type of player, Vitinha type of player, the guy who can control the rhythm and tempo, because it's not about being let me explain this another way. Because you have, in footballing terms, in Premier League now, in the last, let's say, 5-6 years, we have seen the Pep Guardiola way of playing football, that's structure, and Klopp way of playing football, and that's chaos, the heavy metal football. And when Amorim came in, I was expecting something in between. And that we will take chances, we will go on counterattacks and play direct when needed, and sometimes take it down a notch and be calm on the ball and have a breather. But now I feel the Amorim football is not sustainable because we always on the Klopp side, we are in chaos. We are relentless transitioning in every game. And you can see the drop off. You know, we can play good for 25, 30 minutes and then we drop off. Even against Wolves, we did it in the first half. After 30 minutes, we dropped off. And we do this time after time. And for me, I feel we need more control in this team. And that's why I would like midfielders who can take the ball, be press resistive, take down the tempo and you know, conduct the game in another way, because I don't like the way we rushes things all the time. So I don't know if you...
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Jarvis, and Tobi, to answer your question, like my dream would be that we keep Bruno and we have 3 or 4 other midfielders who do things a little bit differently and then choose the right player for the game. My dream would be having Portugal's midfield, you know, where Bruno doesn't have to play every second of every game. Bruno can play the right game, you know, play the game that is going to be highly transitional. My God, I would take Bruno over anyone in the world in a highly transitional game. But
there
if
is
it's
Amorim has played like that. I just believe that, with lack of other word for it, there's like a dearth in quality of 8s in this setup. Not in a 3 midfield setup, but in this setup. And I think Bruno's just doing the best shift right now. But totally, if it was like a 4-2-2 variant of you know, this 3-back system, when you have 2 more controllers, like Jarvis is you know, dying out for, like the team's dying out for, I think he's a fantastic player. So I think, yeah, I think it's the fact that recruitment has still made this team, and even despite that hole in the midfield, the underlying still looks good from an attacking outset. But you have to question, how sustainable is that going to be over 38 game weeks and having that type of intensity on the players? With 1 game a week, maybe you could do it. Maybe you could have a Leicester season, but definitely not in multiple competitions and fixture congestion.
Tobi, does that everything we said right now compute? Like, I don't think anyone here hates Bruno.
No.
I think we're all just saying that he's a typical, like he's a specific type of
I named
player.
my dog after him, by the way. Like, I love that guy with my whole heart. But,
yeah,
you know,
I have 2 Bruno shirts in my closet. Like, I have 2 Manchester United shirts with Fernandes on the back in my closet. So it's just that he plays a specific type of way, which is fantastic for a lot of games, but it's also hurts you in some games. That's why when you see him play for the national team, you can see when he gets to stay on the pitch for all 90 minutes because the game fits his profile, and you can see when he gets hooked for somebody else, you know, very, very near halftime or just after halftime is what I meant to say. Does that sound okay? Tobi, what do you think?
Yeah. You know, I actually agree with what you said. And after listening to what Jarvis had to say about that as well, I kind of like agree as well. You know, the game we played again was a Everton. I think it was Everton where Bruno ball removed for Ugarte. Was that Everton? Was it Ugarte or Mino? I think it was Ugarte, where we had Casemiro and Ugarte on the pitch. I think that was against Everton. And
I believe it was
watching
Everton,
that game, I think a lot of people were like, because of the way the game ended with the corner and stuff, a lot of people found a lot of disadvantage to the game. Like, they could say a lot of bad things about the game. But one thing I did notice was the control in the midfield. At least the initial moments Ugarte came into the game, there was a lot of control in that midfield. Like, I could see the way Ugarte and Casemiro were stringing passes together, stringing passes, moving around, and they just couldn't get the ball out of our midfield. Although eventually that fell to the wayside when they started to press us and stuff like that. But initially, when it got in, I could see a lot of control in the midfield, which is something we don't often see with Bruno. Bruno always look for the next progressive pass. It doesn't look for like trying to control the game in the midfield. So I kind of agree with what you're saying there. I think it's a good idea, but I would still go with what Semeex said, which is keep Bruno and get someone else and play the right person for the right game.
Yep. Guys, thank you so much, because I promised Andy I wouldn't go live for this long because he's live right now. So I'm going to go over there to Footy With An Edge. Jarvis, thank you so much for joining me, man. And you can see how much the chat really loved having you around. So you gotta keep your schedule open for Friday mornings when I try to do this. I'm going to try to do this almost every Friday morning. And again, thanks everybody for joining me. This is great. Tobi, thank you for coming on, man. I hope to see you again on this channel when I'm live next time.
Thanks, man.
Be cool. Hopefully next time you'll get your mic working a little bit better and get you on to everybody who's been here, everybody who's been supporting my channel, including Jarvis, who was one of the first to ever support my channel. Thanks for being here. If you are still interested in watching Manchester United related content, let's all head over to Andy's channel, Footy With An Edge. He's live right now, and let's all bother him and tell him how wrong he is about everything. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Jarvis,
Thanks.
thank you, man.
Have a good one. Peace.
All right.